Welcome to Love, Lust, Betrayal. Before we start the story, please subscribe and press the bell icon. Let's dive into story. On the verge of a new beginning, my ex-boss and ex-girlfriend show up at the airport to stop me. I had spent the past few months planning this moment, my fresh start. After years of feeling stuck in a dead-end job and a relationship that drained the life out of me, I was finally leaving everything behind. The decision wasn't easy. I had worked hard to build a life that, from the outside, looked perfect. A job that paid well, a nice apartment, and a relationship with someone who I thought was my future. But deep down, I was miserable. I was suffocating in the life I had created, living a reality that wasn't mine. It was time to take control and leave the past in the dust. I had secured a new job in another city, a place where no one knew me, where I could start over without the weight of expectations or memories dragging me down. I'd made all the arrangements. My bags were packed, my ticket was booked, and my heart was finally lighter, knowing that I was taking the first step towards something better. The day had arrived. I was at the airport, standing in line for security, feeling the nervous excitement building in my chest. I checked my phone one last time to make sure everything was in order. That's when I saw the notification, a text from my ex-girlfriend. I had told her months ago about my plans to leave. We had broken up a few weeks before, and I thought we'd ended things on relatively good terms. But the truth was, I wasn't the same person I had been when we first met. I had outgrown her, just as I had outgrown the job that had kept me tied down for so long. Yet, reading that text now, I felt a pang of doubt. We need to talk. I'm at the airport. Please don't do this. Her words felt like a punch to the gut. I had thought that by leaving, I would finally escape her manipulations, the constant pressure to live up to her expectations, and the guilt she so often used to keep me around. But there she was, right where I was about to leave it all behind. A mix of anger, sadness, and confusion surged through me. What was she doing here? Why now, after everything had been settled? I tried to ignore it, but my stomach twisted. Was I really ready to just walk away from everything? From her? My mind raced as I made my way to the security check, trying to avoid looking at the text again. But then, as if fate was playing a cruel joke on me, I saw her. She was standing at the end of the terminal, holding a sign with my name on it, her face a picture of determination. For a moment, I hesitated. The urge to turn around, walk back, and ask her what this was all about nearly consumed me, but I knew better. I had fought too long to get to this point. I had worked for months to gain the clarity I needed, to rid myself of the toxic relationships and pressures that had dictated my life. The last thing I wanted was to turn around and let her, or anyone, pull me back into the chaos I had so carefully left behind. But she wasn't alone. Standing next to her was my former boss, the man who had practically controlled my life for the past 5 years. He had always been demanding, always expecting more than I was capable of. I had given him my best years, working late nights and sacrificing personal time just to keep up with his impossible standards. The stress had eaten away at me until I had nothing left to give. I had quit the job just weeks before, but I didn't expect him to show up here, not now, not when I was so close to breaking free. I froze. Seeing them together made my heart sink. It felt like a trap I had been running from, and now, as I stood at the threshold of my future, it seemed that both my past and present were closing in on me, ready to drag me back. They looked like a pair of gatekeepers, holding me hostage to a life I no longer wanted. Please don't do this. Claire's voice rang out from the distance, breaking through the silence of the terminal. Her tone was desperate, a little shaky but still familiar. She had always known how to make me feel guilty, to make me question my decisions when she didn't get what she wanted. I was tired of it. Tired of always trying to make her happy at the expense of my own well-being. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. This was it. The moment I had been preparing for. The moment I had to decide if I would continue living for others or finally start living for myself. I had spent far too long in relationships, both personal and professional, that suffocated me. But now, the opportunity for change was right in front of me. Mark, my former boss, took a step forward. His presence was commanding, as always. "You're making a mistake," he said, his voice dripping with authority. "You've put so much into this job, into this career. Are you really willing to walk away from everything? What will you have left when you're out there, starting over from scratch?" His words hit me like a wave, but I knew better. Mark had always been about control, about molding me into his ideal version of a dedicated employee. He never saw me as more than a tool to advance his own agenda. I had given everything for his approval, but it had never been enough. I had nothing left to prove to him, nothing left to prove to Claire either. This was my life, my decision. "Don't you dare try to guilt-trip me into staying, Mark," I said, my voice steady but fierce. "I've given you everything, time, energy, loyalty, and it was never enough. You've used me, manipulated me, and I'm done. I'm leaving because I need to find myself again, because I deserve to be happy, not stuck in a cycle that's been slowly killing me." Claire's face softened for a moment, but only for a second. She hadn't changed much, still wearing the same look of frustration and helplessness that I'd seen in her eyes for so long. But I wasn't going to let her hold me back anymore, not now, not ever. "I know you think you're doing the right thing," she said quietly, "but you're running away from everything, you're just running from the problems you've never faced." I felt a knot in my stomach. Was I really running away? Maybe I was, but I wasn't running from myself, I was running towards something better, something real. And for the first time in years, I could actually see it, as clear as the sky ahead of me. I'm not running away from my problems, Claire, I'm running toward the life I deserve. With that, I turned and walked toward my gate, not looking back, not giving in to the voices behind me. The moment I stepped onto the plane and took my seat, I could feel a weight lifting off my shoulders. It wasn't just the weight of the past. It was the weight of every decision that had kept me tied to a life I never truly wanted. As the plane taxied down the runway, I knew that my journey had just begun. I stood frozen, caught between my past and my future, with two people who had shaped my life in ways I would never be able to forget. My ex-girlfriend, the one who had once promised me love but left me with nothing but regret, and my former boss, the man who had slowly drained my spirit with his unrelenting demands. They were both here, at the airport, to try and stop me from moving on. My ex-girlfriend was the first to speak. Her voice was shaky but full of conviction. "Please don't do this," she said, stepping closer. "I know we had our issues, but I can't let you leave like this. You're making a mistake." I looked at her, trying to find the person I once loved in the woman standing before me. But all I saw was someone who had held me back. Someone who had tried to make me feel guilty for wanting something more for myself. I had spent too many nights trying to please her, trying to make a relationship work when all she ever did was take from me. I couldn't do it anymore. I had to move on. "Why are you here, Claire?" I asked, my voice trembling but firm. "You know I need this. I can't keep living in the past, constantly doubting myself because of you. I'm doing this for me." She didn't say anything for a moment, just stood there, her eyes full of unshed tears. But the silence didn't last long. My former boss, who had been quietly watching from a distance, stepped forward. His presence was overwhelming, as always. He had a way of making you feel like you were nothing more than an employee, a cog in his machine. "I don't understand why you're throwing everything away," he said, his voice cold but with an edge of frustration. "You've worked too hard to just walk away from it all. I know things have been difficult, but you can't just leave without giving this job a second chance. You've built your career here, and you're throwing it all away for something uncertain." I felt my blood boil. He was trying to manipulate me, just like he had done so many times before. This was the same man who had made me feel worthless, who had made me doubt my own abilities and worth. I had spent too long living in the shadow of his demands, trying to meet his impossible standards. I had worked harder than anyone else, and for what? To be told I wasn't enough? To be constantly belittled and undervalued? "I'm done, Mark," I said, taking a step back. "You never saw me as more than just a worker. You never cared about who I was outside of the office. I don't owe you anything. I've spent enough time trying to live up to your expectations. This is my life now, and I'm not going to let either of you control it." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of my words hung in the air between us. I could feel the tension building, but I was no longer afraid. This was my moment. I had worked too hard to get to this point. I had earned the right to live my life the way I wanted to, without apologies. "I know you think I'm making a mistake," I said, looking between both of them, "but I have to do this. For me. I'm not the same person I was when I got here. I'm stronger now, and I'm not going to let the past hold me back any longer." With that, I turned and walked toward my gate, my heart racing but my step steady. I had said my piece. I had broken free from their hold, and no matter what they said or did, nothing could change my mind. The future was waiting for me, and I was finally ready to step into it. I didn't look back. As I boarded the plane and settled into my seat, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief wash over me. The weight of the past was finally lifting. There was no more running, no more hiding, and no more second-guessing. I was finally free. Thanks for watching.